Over the past year, I've become quite enthralled with the hit Japanese video game series known as Danganronpa. Though the games have their fair share of problems and don't quite stack up against some of my other favorite visual novels, they're still a ton of fun to play. They've got great characters, they've got interesting mystery solving, they've got that creeping sense of despair as everything you know and love slowly falls apart. Everything I could ask for, really. Those characters in particular. Entertaining, tragic, honorable, relatable. There's a lot to choose from here. I've got my favorites, I've got my least favorites, and everyone else has their own onions on the subject. But there's one character that I'd like to focus on today. Mahiru Koizumi, Danganronpa 2's photo-snapping, boy-judging, confident redhead. Ever since her first appearance, she's been a character who splits the fanbase, and I feel like it's put her into an interesting position. You've got the very vocal group who fervently hates Mahiru because heckin' feminism, since she starts bashing on guys in her first encounter with you. Whether that's really true or not, I'll talk about later, but people will believe what they will. Then on the opposite end, you've got people who really like Mahiru. For some interesting reasons, so to say. This crowd's more like, hey Sakuhina fans, how many levels of lesbian are you on? I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, my dude? You are like a little baby. Watch this! Honestly, you could probably build a freaking naval fleet out of the amount of people who ship Mahiru and Hiyoko. They do make some good fan art though, I can't deny that. Then, in between those two, there's a lot of people who just put her in kind of a gray area. It's pretty rare that I see someone who really appreciates her for her character, though I know that they're out there. You're all serving a good cause, comrades. But you know what? In the end, all this is fine. I don't care whether you like or dislike a character or what your reasons may be, but I just want to give you another perspective. I want to look at the character of Mahiru Koizumi and determine just how good she really is. So please, stay and listen. Unless you don't want spoilers, of course. Then I'd recommend you play the game first so you can feel the despair. Before I look into Mahiru's character, I think it's important to know where she came from. What kind of childhood did she have? What experiences caused her to be abrasive to men? Why, mathematically speaking, is she best girl? Okay, that last one might be a little bit hard to prove, but I swear it's true. But anyway, Mahiru's past. She grew up an only child with a mom who worked overseas as a war photographer, and a dad who wasn't the greatest, to say the least. None of the messed up shit that's in Kotoko's backstory, of course, but he definitely didn't do very much to help raise his daughter. Because of her upbringing, Mahiru formed two very different opinions of her parents. She absolutely idolizes her mother, and that family history in photography is what led to her becoming a super high school level photographer. As for her dad, yeah, needless to say, she doesn't like the guy. And by extension, isn't big on other guys either. And even as someone who can't personally relate to her story, I know there are real people out there who have had similar experiences, even with the parental roles switched. There's a lot of anger in her because her dad's laziness has forced the task of housework onto her, and that external love from her mother isn't around enough to quench it. So yeah, she has some high expectations of men, but there's a reason for it. She wants them to be better than her dad was to her. Not like she's been caught up in the hellsite wave we know as Tumblr. Follow me, by the way. That being said, in the player's first interaction with her, she's very quick to judge. Almost immediately after Hajime starts with a conversation, she tells him that he needs to be watching out for the girls and dubs him Unreliable Hajime. And right there is where some people will stop with her. A whole character with a history, a personality, and all the room in the world to develop, ignored because of a bad first impression. Wow, it's almost like there's a lesson to be learned here. But I'm saving that for the end. For now, let's talk about the more positive side of Mahiru, shall we? Now, despite that rocky start, Mahiru is one of the sweetest, realest characters you will ever lay eyes on. She's always cheery, she takes photos of people smiling, she teases the guys by taking candids and acting aloof, she gushes about photography to you, she even makes a daily record of everyone's time on the island, and if that's not dedication to your talent, I don't know what is. And when it comes to the guys, she really starts to lighten up after getting to know everyone. She even invites awkward, unreliable Hajime to a girls-only baking party after the two of them start to become friends. I will stress it as many times as I can throughout this video. Mahiru in her purest form is about the nicest a person can be. However, at the same time she's showing her kinder side, Mahiru continues to prove that she is in fact a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. More than anything, she wants to put herself out there as confident, even if it means coming off as pushy at times. She speaks her mind with little regard of how it'll make people feel, especially if it's one of the guys being rude, or just being crazy. But again, when she starts to move away from her negative side, she shows just how good she is at taking care of people. Once the de facto leader of the group is killed and everyone starts to feel that creeping sense of despair, she's there again. She doesn't quite step up to rally everyone together, but she keeps taking care of them best she can. And honestly, I think that's just as important as anything. Strangely enough, a person who really helps her blossom as a character is Hiyoko. Hyoko's another character who I feel like gets a bit too much hate. Yes, I know that she's manipulative, whiny, lazy, hateful, and pretty much every other bad trait that a person can have, but sometimes you appreciate characters like that, you know? Or maybe I just like her because she helps to purge the crab and ant menaces from the world. It's a cause worth fighting for, sister. But as bad of a person as Hiyoko can be, it's Mahiru who helps her grow into a somewhat decent human being. Once Mahiru teaches the little demon to tie her kimono sash, Hiyoko becomes absolutely infatuated with her new big sister. Once the two become friends, they almost never separate, and slowly but surely, Mahiru transfers some of her sweetness into Hiyoko. I'll never tire of seeing Hiyoko being a terrible person, but it's nice that the girl's friendship makes her less hostile towards the rest of the group. At least until Mahiru, well, gets killed. Seeing my favorite character kills off is something that I, as a Danganronpa fan, am pretty used to at this point. Unfortunately, that doesn't make it hurt any less when I see Mahiru's bloody body lying on the floor in the second chapter of the game! Still, I appreciate that the people at Spike Chunsoft developed her as much as they did while she was still alive. And what I like even more is that the tricky bastards have a thing for developing their characters post-mortem. Though this time it's showing a darker side of Mahiru's history. Long story short, when she started at Hope's Peak Academy, Mahiru was bullied by this girl, Natsumi Kuzuryu. And in the Danganronpa tradition, Mahiru's friend Sato ended up murdering Natsumi, with Mahiru becoming an accomplice of sorts after she took photos of the crime scene. Oh yeah, and then Sato died, so I don't think that was very good for her either. The whole event got erased from her memory because of the weird selective amnesia these games like to use, but it came back once the killing school trip started. The whole event was the motive for the second killing, and Fuyuhiko Kuzuryu ended up confronting her for his sister's death. I mean, it was actually Pekka who did the killing, but details aren't important. The point I want to get at is that once all this background is revealed, it starts to give you a deeper understanding of Mahiru. She has no memory of this event, but once she finds out what she did, she starts to feel guilty about it, and wants to work with the people who had been impacted by it to process it. She didn't want pity, or judgment, or anything. She wanted to help people overcome the murder and live with what she had done. Having that remorse and that confidence at the same time, that takes some guts. But oh boy, that string of murders is hardly the end of her problems. On the surface, she's always the confident one. But when you dig a little deeper, there's a veritable cave system of insecurities to be found. For starters, there's the fact that she basically has no faith in her talent. Compared to all the other super high school levels, she thinks that being praised as a great photographer is stupid. In fact, she generally gets flustered about any kind of praise, which is honestly one of the cutest things I've ever seen in this series. And now that I'm feeling all sweet and happy and stuff, it's the perfect time to jump right back on the sad train. When her insecurities about being a photographer hit hard, they hit hard. After the first murder, she gets completely shut down, shell-shocked and muttering about how she won't be able to do anything but take photos. Not to mention that she constantly compares herself to her mother, and doesn't think that she'll ever be as great a photographer. And unlike Nagito, who doesn't seem to shut up about his buying ready to die stuff, Mahiru keeps these insecurities hidden and lets people really open up to her. Still, I have to give her credit for keeping up her confidence in the face of them. On a personal level, I can relate. So in the end, why exactly does all of this matter? Did I really need to spend a few hours of my life making a video about some girl in a video game? I mean, in the end, we're all going into the void, so not really. But that's not a very fun answer. I just think it's good for Danganronpa fans to understand the ins and outs of Mahiru's character. She's not incredibly important in the whole of the game like Nagito or Chiaki, but she's my favorite, and I really do hope that I've convinced some people to see her in the same light as I do. Oh yeah, there was that one other reason too. I mentioned before that there's a lesson we can learn from Mahiru, and that's the importance of not judging a book by its cover, because, you know, that's exactly what she does. She's quick to judge Hajime as unreliable and write off boys as lazy slobs, but as she gets to know them more, she realizes that she's wrong. She learns from her actions, and she works to become a better person. So, by extension, shouldn't we as players do the same to her? She may not make a very good first impression, but that doesn't mean that she should be written off immediately. Just like Mahiru was able to learn and better herself from her interactions throughout the game, I think that players should make an effort to connect with her to understand her as a person. I have no idea if this was done intentionally or not, but I think it's a great thing to think about regardless. So, And that's it for now. My thoughts on why Mahiru is best girl. At least until V3 is localized and I can gush about Kaide. I hope that no matter what your opinion of her may be, you'll consider what I've said here today. It's been an honor, and I'll see you in the next video.